What's going on, Bills fans? Lance Nelson here. To my left is Scott Casson, and below me tonight, Ben Shoop. A little bit of a different layout to accommodate upcoming guests. So, welcome in. This is the Triple Coverage Podcast here on the Built-in Buffalo Network, and we appreciate y'all taking time out of your Friday night to join us. We're sponsored here by Monster Energy Drink, the official energy partner of Built-in Buffalo, and Buffalo Belia Sports and More. So go over to their Facebook page at Buffalo Belia Sports and More and check out all the custom Bills signed items that they have there, just like the helmet over my shoulder here. Great custom items with all kinds of visors, decals, and more. So go check out Buffalo Belia on Facebook. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? It's a Friday night with no game to preview today, but we do have a great guest that we're going to bring on in just a few moments. But first of all, how are we feeling, and what's going on with the weekend without Bills football?
Yeah, it's a nice week after a good win for the Bills, and less stressful weekend this week when it comes to it. No Bills game this week, but still will be stressing with fantasy football. But at the end of the day, it's a lot less stressful than having to worry about Josh Allen back there and seeing what he can do. But enjoying the week and then into the holiday there, and hopefully another big win the week after this week. So doing good.
Yeah, the Bills sitting at 9-2 in the bye week. I think if you asked most people what they thought the Bills' record would be around the bye week, it would not be 9-2. So very excited about that. Happy to have a stress-free weekend, like you guys said. Get to do some scouting, maybe on the upcoming schedule. I'm excited to watch the Lions play. We got them coming up, and they're one of the best teams in the league. So get to watch some of the other teams and some of the other players you don't get to see every weekend. And a good weekend of college football, which we'll try to give you some picks at the end of the show that are a little better than what we did last week. But yeah, excited to get the show rolling.
Right on. Well, let's do that. So first, let me introduce our guest, Christine Lisi, best known for her work on ESPN Radio, where she delivers hourly sports news updates, and joined ESPN Radio in 2000, covering sports from NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, and beyond. Graduate of SUNY Geneseo. So we'll welcome her in. Christine, good evening. How are you today?
Lance, Ben, and Scott, hi. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, let's get rolling. So Ben, I think you had one question for Christine to start with it, so we'll head it over to you.
Yeah. Scott just mentioned Bills are 9-2. A lot of people didn't expect them to be at this record at this point in the season. What to you, when you look at this team this year, has been really the most impressive part about them?
I think because it was supposed to be a step back year, right? Like that's what everybody heard because, no Steph, no Gabe, no Mitch. Like we lost all these guys. And I think like the way that the team has been able to kind of trying to think of the word, kind of just like regroup and go in another direction, because what we did like the last 2 years, it wasn't going to work anymore. Right. So Brandon took some tough steps. He made some tough moves and we've moved forward. And I have to say, like, I think a couple of things that I'm most impressed with is first year DC Bobby Babich and the adjustments that he makes after halftime. I think Tennessee was one of the games that I really saw that take place. And then also like Joe Brady, his first year as OC, first full year as OC, like it's been neat to see the offense develop, because I can't remember what game it was after. It was after one of our losses, and Thurman was on with Chris Brown on One Bills Live. And he said, our offense is this close, and he could see it. And he was right, because the past couple weeks it's looked really good.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's always been that next man up. So it's awesome to see everybody step up, even with still some injuries to Cooper and everybody else. So I don't know if you, Scott, or Lance have any other thoughts on really just what's impressed you guys. Scott, you got anything?
I've liked how, not to talk just about Josh Allen because there are 10 other guys on the offense, but just kind of how he stayed within the offense so well this season. A couple throws that, he probably wishes he could have back here and there, but he's done a great job at taking what's there, taking what's open. And I think a lot of that is Joe Brady, like you mentioned, Christine, and calling plays that give him reads to be successful. A lot of stuff with Ken Dorsey we saw was either, a check down or a shot down the field. Not a whole lot in the intermediate passing game. And I've loved how Josh has just kind of taken those this year, and we're fine marching our way down the field. Doesn't have to be a big play. So I've loved to see that this season.
Yeah, I like the patience that McDermott's had with those guys that Christine mentioned because he takes a lot of heat when the Bills don't do well, but he knows that he's got a plan. He's developing these guys like Babbage uh, and Brady, so he's putting a lot of trust into them and really letting them run their role, do their jobs, and like not really stepping in that we can see, I guess, too much. It seems like he's very much trusting those guys to be the coordinators that they're supposed to be and letting them, even though the results sometimes don't uh, come out positively, like he still lets them kind of do their thing. Like I really think that two-man rush that people criticized was like a Bobby Babbage thing that he wanted to do, and then like people really hated it because it ended up um, in a negative light. But I really think that McDermott trusted them in their calls in that moment.
Yeah, I think trust has been the big thing this year. You've seen it with rookies, even Ray Davis. The game Cook was out, just people stepping up. So, yeah, it's been a big improvement. Impressive part of this team. A lot of impressive parts this season. But I do know, Scott, you got another question that you got. So go ahead.
Yeah, Christine, you mentioned Bobby Babbage and the defense and kind of starting to come into their own. Any areas of maybe like concern or areas you'd like to see them improve as we go down the stretch run and then into the playoffs?
I guess just health, because of last year. We saw that like between the end of the regular season and then the Pittsburgh game, we lost a lot of guys to injury, and that really impacted part of what took place in the Kansas City loss. I think, and I remember earlier this year, I think it was the Baltimore game. There was a shot. It was TB. It was Matt Milano and Taron Johnson on the sideline, and I was like, "Oof, that's a lot, right? Like that's a lot to miss because those are three big difference makers." I think health would be a good thing. I do like the adjustments. I don't know. I know some people may be a little concerned about the run defense, but I like Bobby's adjustments that he makes, at halftime. I don't know how you guys feel about that. But I mean, I like everything. I got to give a shout out to the UB guys because I'm a SUNY girl. I graduated from Geneseo, as you guys mentioned. Cam Lewis and Ingram. Like it's nice to see guys like that do well too, and like the next man up mentality. Also Dorian Williams, what he's done in year 2 has been something to see, and I'm really happy for that kid too.
Yeah, Dorian Williams has been awesome. I know there were a lot of concerns with him and how he could step in and fill the role of Matt Milano, which is not an easy role to fill, and he's been great. And you mentioned the UB guys. I don't know if anybody watched any Tuesday Night Maction this week, but I think his last name is Zolak. That linebacker for UB had 2 picks and a pick 6 that hit the over. Like I texted my buddies, I was like, "That is a future Buffalo Bills training camp invitee right there."
Sure, for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned the run defense, and to me, that's kind of always been something that isn't a huge concern. Because eventually, there's going to be a holding call. We're going to stop the run. Like, we're going to slow it down. We're going to get them into passing situations, and that's where our defense really shines. And as long as you're not playing the Ravens, it's really hard to beat a team just running the ball, especially in today's NFL. So as long as they can kind of bend, not break there, that's always kind of been good enough for me. Ben or Lance, any other defensive thoughts?
Yeah, I think the Ravens definitely got off with that big run, right, where Derrick Henry kind of gave them the lead and then they never looked back. So that doesn't happen to Buffalo quite often. I mean, I think they typically can either stay with a team or are able to get ahead. And that's really the key to success. And their defense really plays well within that role and being able to keep a lead or, play with the lead. And they've done a great job this year of actually just keeping the team in the games or, not breaking, as Scott mentioned. So I really liked Cam Lewis definitely coming in. Taron Johnson for me is if not the best, one of the best players on this defense. He did get his positional recognition, but I think overall as a defender, he's just so versatile. He does so many things for this defense. It kind of allows the defense to function in the concepts and things that they like to do while staying in that nickel base. So I'm really impressed. And this coming week next week against the Niners, may be the first time since week 5 that we see Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, and Taron Johnson together. So, Christine, what is that how much excitement, I guess, does that garner from you to kind of see that maybe Matt Milano may return here in the next coming week or so?
I am so excited because we've missed him so much the past 2 seasons. And I just think he adds so much to that defense as well. And like the trio of guys, TB, TJ, and Matt, like I just think that I don't know. I was talking to my mom earlier, and she's like, "Can you believe Matt Milano's going to be back maybe next week?" And I was like, I'm excited for it because our defense has been playing really well, and to add a player like Matt Milano, it can only elevate it.
Yeah, for me, I was going to say for the defense, you touched on the injuries a little bit, and that was one of my major concerns is can they all stay healthy? But if they stay healthy, that should help the run game. The run game that's been a struggle a little bit in few games. But the number one thing for me that I want to see this defense really put together for long stretches is the pass rush. That's something that you've seen go away at times. And especially the one thing that Bills fans say in the playoffs, you have to be able to get after the quarterback. So guys like Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, who's looked great since this whole season, really, but even especially after the suspension, he's looked great. Adrian Epinesa is starting to play better, but can they do it for that many weeks, right? Until the end of the playoffs. So for me, that's going to be the one thing. What do you think about then really the pass rush and how those guys have kind of come along as the season's gone on?
It's funny you say that about Vaughn because I really noticed that, like, especially this past weekend against Cincinnati, Kansas City, to see him kind of really almost like the old Vaughn, right? Like vintage Vaughn. I know he's a little older, but like with like Greg Rousseau and all those guys, like I don't know. It was nice to see them in Pat's face, right? I know that it's left tackle. I think it's his left tackle that's been a weakness for Kansas City. So like Pat was running a lot, and then he threw those 2 picks, which I think was a big part of it. But if you can kind of speed things up for people, that can only result in good things for us, like another TB pick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly a recipe for success when this team plays guys like Tua, where they are able to really, speed him up or alter his process really, and not allow him to be maybe as quick, because maybe when he holds the ball, he has to think more and prone to mistakes in that regard. So, the defense has been certainly impressive. The concerns, I think, like you guys mentioned, are really the biggest thing, pass rush probably down the stretch and when it matters. And I think, Dwayne Carter getting healthy too, with the health concern, that's why I think this win over the Chiefs was such a big deal. And we'll get to this one and then we'll get my question next maybe. But, having the 1 seed in play for this team so that they may be able to get a bye week in the wild card round for me was a huge sticking point all week going into the Chiefs game. When we talked about it, my biggest thing was, hey, it matters to win this game against the Chiefs, not because we want to be the number 1 seed for any other reason, that you get a bye week, you get a week off in the wild card round. And with all the health concerns this team has had and may have going into that, it'll just be nice if they can get an extra week to go into the divisional round with as much health as they could possibly have. There's not to say people aren't going to take their licks here in the next couple of weeks, and that we may lose a guy or two here and there. But if we do get that wild card round off, how big of a advantage, how big of a deal do you think that is for the Bills?
I think it's huge because, like, as you mentioned, like we didn't have Keon, we didn't have Dalton, and we didn't have Spencer Brown, and that was such a nice win for us. And you remember, you guys are young, but like you remember the old days, the Jim Kelly days, like you didn't have to have just the 1 seed to get the bye, which kind of stinks now to you get a 2 seed, you're like, wow, this is great, but I just think it would be so important to get everybody healthy and whole. And I gotta say one thing about Amari, like for a bad wrist, man, he had some clutch plays this past weekend, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Wow. Nice to have a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, I think, my question kind of plays right into that is this offense more talented when healthy than years past? You take Stephon Diggs, great player for the Bills, history, was a great teammate, a great part of what they did. But what do you think about how this offense, when healthy, if they have everybody at full health, what do you think about the talent of this offense compared to some of the years past here?
I think it's better, right? Because you can spread it around to like several guys instead of just worrying about keeping somebody happy, right? Like you just like it's nice to get everybody involved, like, you know, a rookie like Keon or Ray Davis, or, you know, name anybody. Like just, you know, Dawson stepped up this past weekend. It's nice to see that. And then I feel like the opposing defense is like, oh, we can't just key in on one guy, right? Like you pretty much knew that it was Steph was the top guy, and then Josh might throw maybe an ill-advised pass trying to squeeze it in there to him, because he always said he trusts his guys to make the catch. And maybe that was the cause of some of the interceptions, more interceptions in the years past. But I mean, I enjoy watching everybody eat, like Joe Brady's philosophy. Like it's a lot of fun.
I want to build off that a little bit as well, but I think they're not just more talented, but they're also more disciplined when it comes to making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, right? You have Mac Hollins, a guy like Mac Hollins who can go out there and provide you big catches, or even good blocking downfield, right? You have everybody stepping up. Dawson Knox, as you mentioned, stepped up even this past weekend. So it's not just more talented. I think it's, again, even Josh Allen's taking care of the football as well, being more aware of, hey, if we don't turn the ball over, that increases our chances to win. And I think even Joe Brady as well, now with a full offseason and full training camp of being able to implement his offense, has made it so this offense has just really been a thing to watch in the air or on the ground. So it's been just a balanced attack. It's been amazing. Everybody's been able to get involved. And I think not even just the talent part, it's everything put together. This offense just looks like they're going to be a force when it gets to playoff time.
Yeah, you mentioned it. The biggest thing for me is balance, like way more balance than there was last year. You mentioned, you know, Diggs, a guy who's going to get a lot of targets, deservedly so. And then on the other side, Gabe Davis, not the most diverse route tree over there. So a lot more creativity in the offense, I think, this season. And guys like Shakir are perfect for this kind of setup. Just get him the ball in space and just like watch what he does, because he does something really cool every single game. And
how good is he?
Yeah.
I was going to say, how good is he? I was just going to say, how good has he been, right? Like, yeah. I felt like, I don't know how you guys said that Pittsburgh win in the playoffs last year, that touchdown was one of the most unbelievable things I had ever seen. I was like, that kid's going to be a star next year. And I've heard a couple of our guys say, like Dan Orlovsky, like he's going to be like a major difference maker for the Bills this year. And it's so awesome to see, like, you know, kind of him develop. What is he, year 3, I think? Yeah. Year 3, like just to see where he is right now. It's incredible to see, like you guys mentioned, all the contributions that everybody's made. I'm sorry, I love Khalil, so I just had to, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
I do too. I love it. And you mentioned the touchdown against the Steelers. He does something like that every week. Yes. Like it's the balance on that guy is just incredible, but he's like a perfect player for the Joe Brady offense. And it's kind of what I thought we would get more from Curtis Samuel, because that's the same way he used him in Carolina. And I don't remember what year it was, but when he did so well. And I'm hoping that, you know, Curtis Samuel starting to get a little healthier, starting to break out of his shell. We can see like similar type plays for him that we've seen from Shakir. And then it's really going to put defenses in a bind, because once you get Keon back and Amari full 100% and Kincaid, like who do you guard?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, good comment here from John. He's a avid listener. He knows how much I've been harping on Curtis Samuel, trying to emerge a little bit. And so first TD as a Bill, it was great to see. And I had to caveat, you know, the offense when healthy, because Amari Cooper adds such a nice dimension for this team that it really is almost that kind of missing piece that, like, he can be that go-to guy, but he doesn't need to be, which is great. He has that vertical presence right in the offense, and he just has such a dynamic and multiple approach to the game that you can really now fit these pieces together. It's just, like you mentioned, very difficult to key in on any one person. And you know, the rookie Keon Coleman, what are your thoughts on him real quick? We got a few more minutes of you, I think. So just give a quick synopsis of maybe just what you think of Keon or any other rookies on the team that you may want to give your thoughts on.
I love him. You remember his introductory press conference? Like, yeah. I just all of a sudden I'm like, I love that kid. And I think he went on his visit. He told one of the secretaries, he's like, I'll be back. Right. Like he knew that was his place. And I know there was a lot made about Xavier Worthy and that we, you know, traded with Kansas City and they got their guy. Like, well, I think we got our guy. right? Like, I think that we got the guy that was the best fit for us. And I think he's really come along nicely. I know there was one play earlier in the year where he and Josh weren't on the same page. And I think the pass bounced off his helmet or something like that. But then you look at like some of the plays he makes and the blocking and his little, the stuff he did against Seattle, blocking somebody into the bench. I just think he's incredible. Ray Davis, amazing story where he's come in life. And like, was it the Jags game where he's waving like this? I'm open. Like, just to watch him play in place of James Cook, Dwayne Carter, I love. He's like an old soul. Like if you hear him interviewed, he's like a 40-year-old man inside a 22-year-old's body. Like I just think I love this team. Like they seem to be such a good group of guys, and I think that helps so much. Like when you care for each other and care about each other, and it's not about my stats and this isn't a shot at anybody, but it's not about individual numbers or anything like that. Cause it's not just football. You can get caught up in that. You can get caught up in hockey or basketball or anything like that. I think that like, I've heard Josh say this too, and I think this is applicable. They're like, well, what do you think about your whatever favored for the MVP or your second favorite or whatever? And he's like, well, I want to win a Super Bowl. But if I'm in the conversation, that means we're doing well. So he gets the big picture, right? Like all those individual awards are wonderful, but like as a fan, I want the Bills to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, one before I die, right? I mean, it's like,
yes.
And every year it passes, like, man, I'm not getting any younger, so come on here. Yeah, so it's a great team. I think Dalton Kincaid fits right into that too, and just a really cool ambiance of this team now connecting with the fans, Mr. Brightside and that whole thing, and just like these guys have just really done wonders. Got one comment question here. We'll get from you really quick if you don't mind. And
Sure.
Who do you think on the D line is most important?
That's hard. Because when somebody's not there, like Ed Oliver, when he missed, you know what I mean? Or when we didn't have Vaughn, it's hard because I just think they play so well together, right? Like it's always like somebody different, somebody different contributing, whether it's Greg or Ed or I don't know. It's hard. I don't know. I'm at a loss. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we've been saying that we're pretty big fans of like how Ed Oliver controls the game from his position. I think like we understand that his skill set kind of adds a complement to this defensive line that just when he's going and he's right and he's disruptive, it kind of makes this team really hard to play. But I'll let you guys speak for yourselves.
Yeah, for me, it's Ed Oliver as well. Just when he's on, it's like that Chris Jones type, like getting pressure on the quarterback up the middle. Like that's the toughest for the quarterback to deal with. You can't step up. There's nowhere to step up. You got to roll out, and then you're just kind of rolling to one of the DNs, which is kind of what the Bills did to Patrick Mahomes on Sunday. That's why they were so successful. Yeah, so for me, it's also Ed Oliver. And then when Ed Oliver is playing well, DaQuan Jones has to play well because he's the block eater. Like he has to make it so Ed can get those one-on-ones. So, yeah, Ed Oliver is it for me as well. But sorry to steal your guy, Lance, but I just agree with you.
Well, I kind of stole yours because I knew that was your answer. We've been kind of obviously doing the show all season together and knowing that like when we talk about defense, we have some segments like who needs to step up and who's going to be the MVP, and just knowing like how that conversation goes week to week with, Scott and I both are kind of lineman oriented football watchers. So like we definitely love to look at that position a little bit more than others. So I just think that knowing, Scott as well, that's why I kind of mentioned Ed, just because I think that he does have that presence, and just agree with what, Scott's brought up a lot of points about him throughout the year. And I agree with that 100%.
I'm gonna go with Von Miller, just because again the reason that you're bringing him in is for those playoff pushes, those big third downs to go after the quarterback, and it even helps I think a guy like Greg Rousseau, where Greg Rousseau on first, second down can really just worry about doing his job and say, hey, I'll get pressure or I'll play against the run well. He's a phenomenal two-way defensive end, but I think Von Miller, especially in the playoff time, you're starting to see him really get to the quarterback on third down and really be that guy. So, I mean, like you said there, though, Christine, it's everybody has to play their role, and everybody does play their role well. It's hard to pick one guy, but at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Von Miller for at least when it comes to playoff time.
Right on. And so, Christine, we really appreciate the time you've given us here. We've come to the end of the 20 minutes we wanted to keep you for, and just tell everyone, where they can find, your content and find you now on ESPN or otherwise.
I just want to ask you guys a quick question. How many times have you watched that Josh touchdown run? I've watched it every day, sometimes more than once, because it pops up on all my feeds. I'm like, I can watch this again. Like that was just so epic.
Yeah, our guy put it to Mr. Brightside too online, and so I watched that quite a bit. So it's been a really good one.
Yeah, it felt like for me, I'm a Yankee fan too, the home run that Juan Soto hit against the Guardians. Like I rewatched that like 100 times, and probably the same with the Josh run.
Yep.
Yeah, I've watched it enough to the point where my girlfriend thinks it's almost almost like a warning of something bad's going to happen. How much I've watched it, but yeah, definitely too much.
And I want to just say one last thing, Sean McDermott gets a lot of criticism, and I don't think all it's warranted. So it's nice that he has been getting some flowers from some people this year for acknowledging how good he is. And, I know for Coach of the Year, there's probably, he won't win it, but I think that even last year, he should be considered more than he is, to deal with all the stuff he's had to deal with and the injuries, and to keep this last year 6-6, and then we end up with the 2 seed. So it's nice to see that I don't know, that for him to get more credit than he has been getting in the past. So I like to see that too. And I like to see people, Josh is having a great season. I think some of his criticisms, I'm not saying he's perfect, but I think some of the criticisms are people who have not watched where he was in 2018 to where he's come. Do you know what I'm saying? People who they Sal Capaccio said this on a broadcast too, they feed into old narratives without actually watching, enough stuff. So that's, so it's nice to see that too.
Yeah, Scott's a big Josh Allen narrative killer there. He loves to shut people down on that narrative a lot. He's very in tune with how Josh has progressed and how, he is able to have such poise and just show some maturity now. Like he mentioned, when you guys were talking about the offense and Josh, he just staying within the offense and staying within himself. I think we all recognize that. I'm not going to go fully down the McDermott rabbit hole because these guys know that I'll get very excited. I'm a very passionate Sean McDermott fan. I very much think that, he has his faults and he's had his areas where he may be to blame. But I ultimately think when you have a 53-man roster and all the staff involved, that pinning something on one guy is just a little bit silly to me. And I do know that he is the head of all that. So he ultimately does carry some of that weight on himself. But overall, some of the deficiencies this team has had, it hasn't been solely on him, in my opinion. So I think that, people will disagree with that. I mean, they often do. And I, have my stance on that. So.
And I'm a lot older than you guys, but I remember from between Marv Levy and Sean McDermott, and for that point, Jim Kelly and Josh Allen, we had a lot of not great quarterback play and not great coaches. So I will live with, I remember when people criticized Andy Reid when he was in Philadelphia, and then you win and narratives change, and it there's a lot that goes into all that stuff. But so I'm good with who our coach is, and I'm good with Josh, because I know I'm probably delaying you guys, but and I apologize.
You can have as much time as you want here.
I got nothing to do. The dog's eating her bone. My husband's watching hockey, so we're good.
Fair enough. All right.
And I just think that I like Sean, and I'm happy he's our coach, because when people last year were 6-6, oh, you got to fire him. Well, who are you bringing in? Because I've been through a lot of, and a lot of Bills fans, we've been through a lot of coaches, the whole drought, and you can't wait to kick somebody out the door. Well, you better have somebody good coming in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I got Mardi Gras Bob here. Do you remember Joe Ferguson days? He's from Louisiana, so I've
I love Mardi
always
Gras
been
Bob. He calls into our shows. I do
awesome.
remember Joe Ferguson. Yeah, he was the first quarterback I remember, and he threw to my first. Well, one of his targets was my first favorite player, who's Jerry Butler. So he was my
Very
first
nice.
favorite Bill. But yeah, that's funny. I remember Mardi Gras. That's funny that Mardi Gras was listening. Big Saints
Awesome.
fan.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Mardi Gras Bob. We appreciate you coming over to the Bills side here, following Christine to the Triple Coverage podcast. I like that. So we appreciate you coming on. And is there anything? Yeah, and anything else? Do you guys want to say anything more about the McDermott or Josh Allen? Ben, maybe a few
Yeah.
words there.
Yeah, I mean that's funny that you said you brought up the Sean McDermott point about how he gets a lot more hate maybe than he deserves and doesn't get as much credit, because one thing that especially all year this year we've been talking about is that Sean McDermott, how much better are you going to get, if you even are going to get better, if you move on, right? I mean, everybody throws out names like Ben Johnson, but even we've seen guys that have been high profile names to get head coaching jobs like a Ben Johnson go somewhere and it doesn't work out well. I mean, look at Sean McDermott. When Sean McDermott was hired that offseason, I think there were 7 or 8 coaches hired that offseason. And I think most people had him as the 7th or 8th best hire and as one of the worst hires that offseason. And I think him and one other coach that season is still on the same team. Everybody else is gone. So at the end of the day, how much better you're going to get, it's a risk to get rid of somebody else. So I fully agree there about Sean McDermott. It's a little bit of a shock sometimes to see how fans react to Sean McDermott. And I know, yeah, like Scott said, he has his faults, but at the end of the day, I don't think you're going to get too much better than Sean McDermott right now.
Yeah, I think the guys like Andy Reid and Bill Cowher and these guys went through a lot of different things, losing in divisionals and making a championship game, maybe making a Super Bowl. My biggest fear is like making the Super Bowl and then not winning it. That's like almost worse than not making it at all. But I think that you look at the careers of like a Cowher and an Andy Reid and things. It just takes time. And one of the commenters here, Joey from 12th Man Mafia, is an avid listener. We appreciate you being here, Joey. First time coach, when 13 seconds happened and things like that, that was, him learning on the fly in certain situations. And sometimes with game management situations, situational football, as our co-founder Akeem likes to say, and in the situations that you encounter throughout the game, sometimes they're new, sometimes you haven't encountered them yet. And then once you build a rapport with with those situations and you're able to continuously experience them, then you can build more of a consistent approach to certain things, I think. And that's all gained with experience. And like you said, someone else coming in may not handle some other things that McDermott does well as well. So, where does the defense go if McDermott leaves and things like that? So, I'm really passionate about that discussion. I think a lot of people know that. And so, I appreciate you bringing that up and having a little bit of a dialogue with that. If you're wanting to hang around, we can go to the next topic we have here, or if you,
Sure.
it's up to you, however you want to
I
roll
got
it out.
time.
But
I
we're
got
going to
time.
look a little bit. We're going to look a little bit into the AFC here and just how that outlook goes. So Scott, you can take that.
Yeah, Christine, appreciate you hanging out. We'll start with you. I don't think we prepped you on any of this other stuff, so we'll get your raw opinions. Who do you think is the biggest threat in the AFC? Biggest threat to the Bills, or even just biggest threat to win the AFC could be the Bills. So answer to both of those.
I think coming off that game on Sunday, I think you have to say the Bills, right? I know that like people picked apart the undefeated Chiefs for a while, and they do look good. And I think when you have Pat, that's always frightening. And then you look at the Steelers, and they lost last night to the Browns, right? And because people were saying, "Oh, are the Steelers, a Super Bowl contender?" I think it's hard to say. I would think right now it's us just coming off that game on Sunday, like down 3 key offensive players. And I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, definitely. You have Ryan Vandermark stepping in, doing an admirable job there. No Keon Coleman, right? And then no Dalton Kincaid. I think maybe the 3 that you're referring to. And certainly the Kincaid being out thing was probably one of the more nerve-wracking things. I think that having Amari Cooper in, like I mentioned before, really helps this offense have a dynamic function, and they can really lean into that everybody eats mentality when Amari Cooper is lined up on offense. So Kincaid being a big weapon. Now Allen hasn't had the best rapport with him this year for some reason, and he does have a great rapport with Dawson Knox. It appears so. Knox, like you mentioned, filled in admirably, and I think that to me the biggest threat in the AFC to answer that question is going to be Baltimore, because they shellacked us, and there's no way else to put it. I mean, they put it on them, and until the Bills can. Now, the Bills have had their number in the playoffs for multiple years, but I mean, it's the same sort of concept as we're talking about with the Bills in Kansas City, right? So the Chiefs have had our number, but my biggest thing moving forward this year is going to be past results don't guarantee future outcomes. The old lawyer thing there. So that's been my kind of motto since we beat the Chiefs, and I'm going to say, yeah, we can beat them in the regular season, but just because we beat them in the regular season the past 4 years and not in the postseason doesn't mean that they can't get over the hump this year.
Yeah, I was going to say Baltimore as well, but I mean, and the only thing with Baltimore, I would say that's the biggest threat to the Bills, because I do think the Bills right now are the team in the AFC that you're looking at to say, hey, how do you beat them? Because they've just, 6 straight wins. There's only one other team that has over a 2-game win streak right now. It's the Chargers. But the Ravens, they have shown that they can play against the Bills, and they might have, the run game to beat us. But at the end of the day, if the Bills are at home and they even get the 2 seeds, majority of the playoffs, you're going to be at home. How do you beat a team like the Bills in their home stadium, in front of these fans, in front of just the craziness that goes on here? I mean, the Bills, we talked about it a little bit before you hopped in when we were before the show, that the Bills are one of 2 teams that are undefeated at home. The only other one is the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Kansas City Chiefs just lost to the Bills. So that the Bills can beat the Chiefs. The Ravens were the only team that I said that I think right now poses a major threat to the Bills, and they're 3-3 on the road. So if you can get them in Buffalo, that's a huge win. Right now you got the 2 seed. So I think, it's got to be the Bills. The only other team right now that I think is a major concern for the Bills is the Ravens, just because of that run game. But at the end of the day, I would still take the Bills.
Yeah, you all said all of the points I would make. Just Patrick Mahomes, like you said, Christine, still scares the hell out of me.
Yes.
He went and beat everybody on the road last year. It didn't matter. He beat the Bills in Buffalo. He beat the Ravens in Baltimore, and then he won the Super Bowl. So always scared of him. And then the Ravens, obviously, like you said, Lance, they took us to the woodshed in week 4. Most teams in the AFC have kind of loaded up to try to beat the Chiefs, and they're like built to beat the Chiefs. Like they have pass rushers and all. Like the Ravens are almost more built to beat the Bills. Like they run the ball really well. Derrick Henry they added in the offseason. So I don't know if I would want the Ravens coming to Buffalo in a cold game where you have to run the ball and we got to tackle Derrick Henry for 60 minutes. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me. So hopefully we don't have to play them.
Yeah, their pass defense has been a little suspect.
Yeah,
right? Baltimore the past couple of weeks. But like you say, if it's snowing and it's cold and they have, Derrick Henry, that's another story. And then 2, like the Ravens losses have been weird. Like they lost to the Raiders, the Browns. Like it's weird. They usually lose the Steelers twice, and it's a very strange. I know divisional games are just like a much different animal, but I don't know. I like our chances, especially at home.
Yeah, I live in Baltimore, so I get inundated with Ravens facts. And obviously they've lost some more games this year, but it was like the quarterbacks of the past 2 seasons that like the Ravens have lost to. It's like Gardner Minshew twice, and a whole bunch of other people that you wouldn't think would beat the Ravens.
Yeah,
like
whoever had the Steelers.
Yeah, right. Like Kenny Pickett. Like they always lose weird games. We were talking a bit about it when you joined, but Ben, we'll start with you. Who's the biggest sleeper team that you'd want to avoid in the playoffs out of the AFC?
Yeah, we talked about it, and you guys, when I first said it, you kind of thought it was a weird pick, but I'm going with the Denver Broncos. I think they're a sneaky team because, you have a younger quarterback that usually doesn't bode well, but you have a Super Bowl winning coach. You have a defense that can step up at any point and play very good football. They have one of the best cornerbacks in football. But even so, you look at the offense. I mean, Cortland Sutton's starting to get rolling here. He's starting to play really good football, as well as even Bo Nix. Like I said, he's a rookie, but he can do it on the ground with his legs, and he can throw the ball a little bit. So, they're a team that, especially early in the playoffs, I wouldn't necessarily want to see. They are a bit on the younger side, especially when it comes to quarterback, but they're a team that when it comes to sleepers, they're a team that I wouldn't want to play necessarily in round one.
I would say maybe them or the Chargers, just because of Harbaugh he's flipped that whole organization, right? Like they were kind of a disaster under Brandon Staley, and it seemed like they were wasting Justin Herbert. And then this year they're one of the, the better teams in the league. I think either one, although with a one game, like it's all nerve wracking, right? Like it's all white knuckled, like waiting for that clock to read 0. But that's, I think anybody would be, Chargers or Cincinnati. I'm saying Cincinnati. Oh, Chargers or the Ravens or, Broncos.
Say what you will about Cincinnati. I wouldn't want to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs, no matter what their record is. So, yeah.
That guy haunts me.
For sure. Yeah. And I think the Chargers for me is the answer when you're talking about sleeper team, because I think we talked about the biggest threat just before, which was for me the Ravens. And you got to include the Chiefs right there, but they're not really sleepers. So I think definitely our owner and one of our co-founders, Dave Myers, he and I were going through when we did our power rankings for this week, and he's like, I got to put the Chargers in the top 10. And I'm like, they haven't done it for me yet, but they're right there at 11. And now after seeing the Steelers and how they performed against the Browns, it's like, man, I maybe even could have left the Steelers out of the top 10 altogether, but just with their record and what they've done and what they have on defense, I gave them the respect of putting them at 6. But I even included the Washington Commanders over the Los Angeles Chargers. So I think the Chargers for me are the answer, because Justin Herbert has not had to sling it really this year, but we all know that he can. So I think that's really the biggest thing. Like, you might question, like, okay, how are his weapons? Lad McConkey, obviously being a rookie, has performed very well. Quentin Johnston, who's is a young player as well, second or third year here now, and Joshua Palmer, the top 3 there. But also DJ Chark and Jalen Reagor sitting back there. So it's not like they have terrible weapons. They don't have like any big name or one guy that scares you maybe, but as a team, I think, they're with Justin Herbert able to, put some, and then they have J.K. Dobbins and Gus Bus over there. So definitely some guys that can handle the rock out of the backfield. So I think that with the coaching, it might matter the most. Like you mentioned, Harbaugh, I think that may be one of the more intimidating factors when you talk about team you don't want to see.
Yeah, the Chargers are definitely one of those teams for me, but I'm going to give you a bit of a different one. I'm going to give you the Dolphins. There's a very real world where the Dolphins go on a run. They get the 7 seed because the AFC West is going to beat up each other. The Chargers are going to lose more games. The Broncos are going to lose more games. The Dolphins could get the 7 seed. We get the 2 seed, and they have to come to Buffalo in the first round. And that's a divisional game. They know us better than anybody. And when you got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and if Tua's fully healthy, like, I don't know if I'd be pumped about that. And, they say it's hard to beat a team 3 times. So it's definitely a bit of a long shot, but I would not want to see the Dolphins in the playoffs. Same with the Bengals, like you mentioned. Like, I'm fine with both of those teams just staying down in the basement. Like, we don't need them in January.
Yeah, the only argument with the Dolphins is that it's hard to drive a Ferrari or a Lamborghini in the snow. So if they're going to see them in the wild card round, you're probably looking at a game where their skill sets are going to be harder to utilize potentially. You not know what the conditions may be.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of car it was, but you can ask Stephon Diggs about driving a nice sports car in the snow.
I will say this. Do you guys remember the when the Dolphins had to go to Kansas City? I don't think it'll be that cold at our place if they did have to come to Buffalo, but oof, that was a rough one for them.
Right. even when they came here and they were
Yeah, I've
wearing
never seen a
Yeah.
helmet just break before.
Yeah.
That was
when,
crazy.
when they were wearing the "I wish it were colder" sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Or was that before? I think it was before us, right? And then they
That was
came-
we clinched the I think we clinched the division that night in 2022. I think that was the night
haven't seen them
McDaniel
wearing
wore that shirt. No. Nope.
All right, and then the last one here, I think, is who's the biggest fraud, and do you see any fraudulent AFC teams coming out? I think the biggest answer may be the Pittsburgh Steelers, but how do you feel about anybody or who you might have on that?
I don't know. I think with the Steelers, my thing is like Mike Tomlin, right? Like I don't know. He kind of finds a way to just get the most out of his guys, like a lot like Sean, right? But I know a lot of people at work could think that they're a little fraudulent. My husband too, especially after they lost last night. But I don't know because I just think because of Tomlin, maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say for me.
The only one I would say is actually a team that has beat the Bills this year, and it's the Houston Texans.
Oh, mhm.
I mean, if you look at their schedule, they beat one team by more than a touchdown, and it was the Dallas Cowboys this past week, and we all know how the Dallas Cowboys have been this week here. But you even look at their wins, right? They beat the Bears by 6. They got crushed by the Vikings early in the season. Even in the game against the Bills did not play good football game, and they almost came back and won that game. You look at the Lions. I mean, when they played the Lions, Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions and they lost. So they're the team to me. I mean, they lost to the Jets 3 weeks ago too. So they're the only team to me that, yeah, they beat the Bills, and Texans fans can say all that they want about that game. But at the end of the day, I said it after that game, nobody's going to care about a week 5 game when it gets to the playoffs. And this team seems to kind of be spiraling now. CJ Stroud's not playing as well as he was early in the season. So, and maybe getting Nico Collins back now will help that. But they're a team that I'm not necessarily convinced on to win a playoff game this year. So that's the only team I think in the AFC that, besides Pittsburgh, that really kind of stands out as maybe the biggest frauds in the AFC.
They can't score in the second half. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. They can't score in the second half. That's a huge issue for Houston because they look like they were going to blow us out of the building, right? Where they were up 21 something, and then they barely scored, and because their kicker's outstanding, he kicked that field goal at the end was like 61 or 65, whatever it was. It was like Tyler's kick against the Dolphins. It was a long one. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to say that's their big issue.
We're here to listen to you, so interrupt away.
I don't know if I have any knowledge, but
yeah, before you go, Lance, though, but even like to your point, when you get to the playoffs, you've seen it time and time again of teams blowing leads, and you have to be able to hold that lead. And they're just a team that I don't know, maybe they're a little bit young, and they lost Stephon Diggs now too for the season. So who knows what will happen with them? They do have Joe Mixon, who's playing great football, but yeah, it just seems like they can't put it together for a full game there, full 60 minutes. So they're my pick for the AFC.
Yeah, that's probably consistency, right? And that's really the biggest thing when you talk about teams being able to be successful is being consistent. And with some young guys across the offensive line and Laramie Tunsil, just so many penalties all the time, it seems, and just him being inconsistent as well. That just leads to, that fraudulent thought, I think, too, is being inconsistent and then also, losing some guys. They've lost a couple guys and they still have guys there, but it's always fun. Robert Woods is on that team, and he was just one of my favorite Bills receivers when he came around, and I met him at training camp, and I just, he was sitting next to Sammy Watkins, and I let my nephew get the Sammy Watkins autograph, but I was like, I want Robert Woods autograph, and I just remember that so vividly. It was a good time. So, Houston, I can definitely agree. I think some of Stroud struggling is due to some of the inconsistency across the offensive line as well.
Scott, do you got anything before we move on here? I don't know if Scott, I know he was talking about having a little bit of problem with connections. So we'll see if he's here.
Can you hear us, Scott?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
Yep,
we got you now. Yep.
right, we'll let Scott figure that out as we go on, though.
Okay, cool.
There we go.
I'll try not to repeat everything you all. No, you guys just go. I'll be right back. I'm gonna reset my router.
All right, so Scott's gonna be right back then. Yeah, if you do, we do have 3 other quick questions here if you want to stay on from, and they're pretty simple ones. We usually ask them every week as the kind of the season goes on. Each week we answer 2 same questions. First one is my first one here is, for the rest of the season, for the Bills to continue the success, who's one guy that you'd say that, even if they're still playing well right now, that really needs to maybe even step their game up even more than they have this season for the Bills to have success in the playoffs and so on?
That's hard to say. Maybe James Cook.
Yeah.
He's had a nice season, though. I mean, it's hard to figure out because we've had such a good contributions from everybody overall. I can't see anybody who think like that guy's not, doing what he needs to do, but maybe just to have the running game a little bit stronger. But he's done really well.
Yeah. Who do you got, Lance? You got anybody?
I think that the guards on the offensive line, both guards need to continue to step their game up and continue to play at a high level. I'm not saying they haven't played great, but there are, when you talk about the inconsistencies I mentioned with Houston's offensive line, there are inconsistencies there, especially with Osiris Torrance, I think. But both guys have shown that they don't perform consistently throughout. So, whoops, there we go. Scott, I'll get back in here. We'll get all situated. So, yeah.
Sorry, I flipped to my hotspot.
Great.
Should be good now.
We're talking about who needs to step up for the Bills to continue their success. Christine was mentioning James Cook continuing to step up. And I mentioned that the guards both need to step up because we've seen some inconsistencies throughout the season thus far, and they've played admirably as we may have mentioned earlier. I'm not sure if it was in the chat before the show or not, but we talked about how those guys have had their successes, but they have also been inconsistent as well. So for me, the 2 guards are guys that need to continue to step up, just continue to improve and grow and improve, keep going.
I have to bring this comment up just because it's funny from John here, but surprised Lance didn't say Curtis Samuel.
First name that popped in my head was Curtis Samuel, and I said I'm not going to say it. So
there is a comment here though from Christopher as well. He said Dawson Knox. I'm actually going to go with the other tight end. I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid. I think he's had a good season so far, but I think Bills fans still have kind of expected a little bit more. And I think when it comes to playoff time, you've seen Travis Kelce take over the playoffs countless times. Dalton Kincaid, if he can step up there and just make things easier for Shakir, James Cook, just the offense in general, I think Dalton Kincaid can be a guy that can really be a difference maker. So I'd like to see him step his game up a little bit. We've all gone offense so far. So Scott, are you going to keep it on the offense, or you're going to go the defense?
I'm going to get real weird and go special teams. I'm going to say Tyler Bass. I know he made the 61-yarder to beat the Dolphins, and then we thought he was fixed. He got his swag back. He made all his kicks in the Colts game, but then he goes and he misses an extra point. And it wasn't really on the windy side of the field. The other side of the stadium is getting a lot more wind. He just flat out pushed it, which he tends to do a lot. And playoff football, games are going to be close. They're going to come down to kicks. We can't have missed kicks of any variety. So I believe in Tyler Bass. I hope that 61-yarder kind of got his confidence back like it seemed to. And I hope that this extra point was just, a blip on the radar and that he's going to be solid the rest of the season. But if we're in a gotta have it kicking situation that's anything outside of 40 yards, I don't know if I feel great about that. And it's going to happen. I promise you it will, because that's the way the football gods work. So I would like to see more consistency out of Tyler Bass, because we're going to need him in the playoffs.
Yeah, especially with the weather coming, weather's going to get worse in Buffalo. So you're going to need that consistency. We just talked about who needs to step up, but I want to talk about that in the next question here. We'll start with Lance on this one. Who has been a player this year that has kind of surprised you, whether it's rookie, whether it's just a guy that's kind of come out of nowhere, who has kind of surprised you on this team this year?
Yeah, I'm going to say James Cook surprised me with 10 touchdowns. He's tied for third amongst running backs with touchdowns scored this year, rushing the ball. And that's really impressive. I bet on him by drafting him in a fantasy dynasty league. I thought that he was going to do that. but I, was also thinking I was just being a homer, and then I was just like, oh yeah, of course I think he's going to do that because he's the Bills running back. And but I just thought that with the change in offense, with the different the philosophy shift away from one single focus point and the everybody eats mentality just led me to be like, he can really strive and thrive in that environment because he does have the quickness and the talent to do that. Some of those times when he's bouncing it to the outside, last game especially, just having the speed to get there to the edge and being able to get to the pylon in short yardage, not necessarily having to be the downhill all the time, running into a wall. When they do that with him, I get pretty annoyed. We all kind of talk about sometimes the predictability of the offense and how much they run him into a wall at times. But I think, scoring touchdowns more has surprised me at least.
What do you got? Let's go Scott. We'll go Scott next.
For me, it's been Taylor Rapp. We knew he was a solid player. He was starting safety on that Rams Super Bowl team. Made a couple spot starts last season when Micah Hyde and Poyer were out. And by the end of the year was kind of really like in his role as that like third safety dime package. DB had the pick to seal the division against the Dolphins, but he's been awesome this year. Like, I didn't realize he could hit the way that he could hit. He's been really good in coverage, and the safety spots, both of them were a huge question mark coming into the season, and kind of, swung and missed with Mike Edwards. That didn't work out at all. And DeMar Hamlin's been solid. He's, has his deficiencies still, but Taylor Rapp's been awesome. Like, he's been solid back there. He's been kind of that like pillar in the secondary, keeping everything together. So I've loved what I've seen from Taylor Rapp. He had the pick on Sunday against Patrick Mahomes, really get the game going. Well, that was more caused by Daquan Jones, but he's the one that caught it, and that's hard. So excited to see what he does going down the stretch.
Who you got, Christine?
I'm gonna go. We talked about him before. Dorian Williams. I really like what I've seen in year 2 from him. And we mentioned earlier, like how he's really stepped in nicely in the absence of Matt Milano. And I just Ray Davis would be another one for me. Like to just see when James was out and how he kind of, he's played well when he's had his number called. He's played well. He's like a bull, right? Like he's it's the combo we have of Cook, Ray, and then Tyler. It's just a really nice backfield there.
I'm also going to go with 2 of them as well. Before the show, I talked about David Edwards, and he's had his ups and downs, but there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of question marks about the decision to let Mitch Morse go and kind of make that switch in the interior offensive line. So I think he's played well enough to kind of get that acknowledgement of really surprising people. So he's one. And then the other one that I'm going to go with, actually, I'm going to go with a guy that isn't even playing right now because he's hurt, but I'm going to go with Keon Coleman. He's a guy that I didn't have high expectations coming into the season just because rookie receivers, especially a guy like him who wasn't really a refined route runner, was more known just to make those wow plays. And I mean, he's made those wow plays this year, and he's shown his ability to go up and get the ball and really be an aggressive receiver for Josh. And Josh just seemed to trust him, especially early on. So I'm more shocked with the trust of Josh Allen that he has in him and everything like that. So I'll go with those 2 for mine. And a lot of surprises though, I think, this season. I mean, a lot of surprises for the Bills in general, especially in the national media. People had them not doing as well as they are so far. So a lot of good surprises. We got one last question, which is kind of just a fun one here for you. We'll start with you, Christine. What moment this year, out of all the games, every game that you've watched, has really been that moment that you're just like, that's the moment that I'm going to remember, and that's the moment that I'm going to look back at the end of the season? It's
got to be the Josh touchdown run. Like that was just, I know people got on Jim Nantz for saying play of the year. It was. Right? The defending Super Bowl
100%.
champs, they're 9-0. Like that was, and I got to give my husband props because our dog was getting a little wound up because it was time for her walk. And I'm like, I'm not going. So he took her. And before the game started, he goes, Christine, Josh is going to have a long touchdown run today. I guarantee it. And he was out with the dog when it happened. But I got to credit Rob for that. But I think for me, that's it. Like Josh has a lot of wow moments. And but that's the one that stands out for me.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely I've been to a lot of games. That was one of the loudest I've heard that stadium. And there was another loud moment this year, which Scott brought up a little bit ago, was that 61-yarder from Tyler Bass to win it. So that's going to be my choice for this one for the moment of the year, just because everybody saw him trot out there, and I'm not sure if maybe 75% of the stadium thought he was going to miss it, and everybody thought, oh, we're going to go to overtime, or we're going to whatever, the game's not going to go our way. But he nailed it, and it was a phenomenal kick, and that was another moment in that stadium where I was like, wow, that was loud. So that's going to be mine. So I don't know, Lance, Scott, you guys got a different one at all that you guys want to point out?
I do. For me, it's that Taron Johnson interception against the Jets on that red line throw, as Aaron Rodgers called it. Because in that moment, the Bills' season's kind of teetering. Like, they're 3-2. They started off 3-0, looked awful against the Ravens, looked bad against the Texans. And it's like, are the Bills who we thought they were? Like, are they going to be kind of a middle-of-the-pack team? They outplayed the Jets in that game. Rodgers has the Hail Mary, which he somehow always does. And it's like, damn, the Bills outplayed the Jets, but, like, they might not win this one. And then Taron Johnson, his first game back from the injury in the first series of the season, makes that interception. The Bills win the game, and they haven't lost since. So I'm hoping that that's going to be one of those like start of the championship DVD moments, and we're going to look back and like after that they just started rolling. So the TJ pick is a different one for me.
You got one?
Yeah, I gotta piggyback on the Josh Allen run. I'm sorry, I don't have anything creative. I mean, the nice moments are. No, it's great. I mean, it's just
whoever
like
went
said,
first was going to take it. So.
Play of the year in the NFL, obviously the play of the season for the Bills so far, and I'm expecting it to be, at least for the regular season, the play of the season for them. I don't know if there's going to be a bigger moment in a regular season game than there was there. So that definitely has, captured. That's the one thing of like, oh man, I traded my Chiefs tickets. I'm a season ticket holder. I traded my Chiefs tickets for two tickets to the Niners game. So I'm going to go to the Niners game with my best friend and his wife and be able to celebrate their birthdays and stuff with them. So, and if it's like, oh, I missed one thing in the Chiefs game, that's the one play where it's like, oh, to be in that stadium would have been so cool. But obviously not going to be as cool as it will be to be, with my brother and his wife, going to the Niners game. But yeah, that's definitely for me is like, hey, that's got to be the moment of the year for the league almost. So definitely going to be for the Bills as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other plays. You'll see that, at the end of the year, they'll put together that whole big, long highlight reel, and those are the ones that will stand out. I want to bring up one last one before we wrap it up here, and it's the Ray Davis, I think it was a 70-yard catch and run that was just, it was crucial time in the game, and that one, I remember when he caught it, I was like, there's, he's going to get 15, 20 yards, and then he just broke it and went all the way. And so that was a big play for that game as well. So I want to shout out Ray Davis for that one as well. But just so many other big plays and so many big plays that we'll still see. There's still weeks to go. So we'll see how it goes. But that's all we have question-wise for the show here. So Lance, I don't know if you want to wrap her up or
absolutely. We're gonna announce our parlay here, but we'll let Christine tell us about where we can find her on different social media platforms or on ESPN as well, and just what you have in the works. Where can people really consume anything that you got going on?
I'm on ESPN Radio Monday through Friday. It's usually like either 9 to like 2:30 or 9 to 6:30, or sorry, 10 to 2:30 or 10 to 6:30. I'm on every half hour. I'm on Twitter at ESPN Christine, and then I'm on Facebook, Christine Lisi, and then Blue Sky. I like that. I don't know if you guys are on Blue Sky.
Yep.
I like it. It's so, I don't know. I told my friend at work, I'm like, it's like puppies and rainbows. It is so pleasant and sweet. I'm on Instagram, same thing, Christine Lisi. Like, I love the positive interaction with people. I love I don't group watch. I turn off my phone during Bills games so I can just watch the games because I'm nervous enough. But I love to talk to people and just interact with people in a fun, nice way. So
absolutely. And we thank you. You've been such a great supporter of Built in Buffalo and our social media channels and a lot of stuff on X where I reached out to you and just really grateful for the positive things you had to say about, our platform and everything. So again, very grateful for you spending much more time with us than we thought, and we appreciate that. We always love having some more voices here, because I can get a little wordy, and then Ben's got to tell me to shut up, and it's all no. But no, we're again just really grateful, and thank you so much for being here.
This was fun. You guys do good work. Keep up the good work. I got to work on getting my better camera. I don't know how to do that. I'm an old lady. I got to work on that if you guys have me on again, but you can have me on after the Super Bowl parade.
All right, we will
I
hold you
told
to
Khalil
that.
that. I interviewed
All
Khalil
right.
last week before the Chiefs game, and I said, "Hey, Khalil." This was at the end. I said, "Hey, I'll meet you. I'm going to meet you at the Super Bowl parade in February," and he laughed.
Awesome.
Sounds like
Amazing.
a
Well,
plan.
if you're here for that, I hope that we can meet up in person down on the street there, because Ben and I are in town. We live in Buffalo, so if you're ever around, don't be shy to reach out, uh, grab some wings or something. So be well, Christine, and thank you very
Guys,
much.
too. Thank you. Go Bills.
Go
Go
Bills.
Bills.
Go Bills. Thank you.
All right, so that was Christine Lisi. Please, guys, smash that like and the share button. We really appreciate it, getting us some more notice in the algorithm there. If you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would be huge. Go over to the Built in Buffalo YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. All right, we don't have a fancy graphic this week because we went 0 for stinking 3 last week on our college football parlay. So we said we got to earn that graphic moving forward here.
Sprinkles are
So
for winners, Lance.
that's right. So as much as Scott hates parlays, we're still going to give our 3 picks that you can or cannot enter into a parlay. So Ben or Scott, I guess let's start with you and give us your pick.
Yeah, my pick this week is Bama minus 13.5 at Oklahoma. Oklahoma is really, really bad. I don't know if many people have watched them this year, but they're just not a good football team. Alabama is. I've taken Bama a decent amount this year, and they've looked good. They coming off. I forget who Bama played last week. They played Mercer last week, so they're going to be fresh. Bama minus 13.5 on the road at Oklahoma.
I am going to go with minus 22.5 Boise State over the Wyoming Cowboys. And I know it's basically Shakir versus Josh Allen, essentially. They might even have a side bet going, who knows. But just like Scott's opponent, the Wyoming is not a good football team. They're 2-8. They allow about 200 rushing yards a game. And I don't know if people have been paying attention to college football this year, but if you have, Boise State's running back, Ashton Jeanty, however you pronounce it, a million different ways. Scott's already saying that I'm pronouncing it wrong, but he's a.
Told you before the show.
I've said it a million times. I'm not the best with last names, but yeah, they're not a good football team. They give up rushing yards. They're playing a good running back. It's later in the season. They're going to lean on them. It's just, to me, that line seems a little bit forgiving for how the difference in these two teams are. I mean, Boise State, if they win this game, they're looking at potentially a way into the college football playoffs. Is looking like they might get in there. So yeah, I'm gonna go with them. I know, a lot of people will say, you don't pick against Josh Allen's alma mater, but he's off today and he'll be watching that. So hopefully he'll be watching on Saturday. Boise State cover that. So I'm gonna go with Boise State minus 22.5.
Yeah, last I checked, Indiana.
I've made a lot of money betting against Wyoming this year, so.
Very nice. I'm going to go with Indiana plus 10.5 against Ohio State. I don't know that Ohio State has been super impressive this year. I think they're going to win the game overall, but I don't know if they're going to win by double digits. And even if they win by 10, I got that half point there covering me. So I think Indiana can keep it within 10 points against Ohio State there this weekend. And I'm going to go with the 5 plus 10.5 against the 3 seed currently. So that'll do it for us. We greatly appreciate everyone tuning in. We are very thankful again for Christine Lisi stopping by. And we'll be back next week to preview 49ers matchup. We'll see what the health of that team looks like in a week. They're a little bit banged up right now. And the Bills also will be gaining hopefully some health back, and we'll see what guys like Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, and we'll see what Matt Milano's status is. So a lot of cool things to happen within the next week before we see you again on next Friday. So please, again, like and share. Go out to the Built in Buffalo social media pages and interact there as well. And then check out our other content creators. We have Izzy in the comments here as well with the Red Zone Report on Sunday. And then we also have, excuse me, we also have Buffalo Against the World on Mondays, and Going Deep Buffalo on Wednesdays, and then The Hoof on Thursday. So please go out there and give and support those people. With that, guys, is there anything else you have to say?
I got nothing. I mean, it's just great show. It was awesome again to have Christine on here. It was some great conversation. But yeah, it's hopefully it is the next time we speak with her, have her on. We are talking about how we predicted that the Bills were going to win a Super Bowl, and then she was going to come on after. So hopefully that's the next time we have her on here, and hopefully we can have her on again because it was awesome.
Yeah, and let us be the first to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy some time with the families, and enjoy Cooper Rush and Tommy DeVito. That'll be some exciting Thanksgiving Day football for everybody. You're welcome.
Tommy Cutlets, let's go. All right. With that being said, go Bills, baby.